This is Colin, and I'll be guiding you through how to create a histogram in Microsoft Excel for your assignment. The first thing I'm going to do is copy these values from the social media total column and move them a little bit over to the right. I think it'll make this a little bit easier to follow with the commands that we're using in Excel today. I'm going to paste these, but make sure that you do paste special and then values, just in case you have a formula within here. Otherwise, Excel is going to translate that formula in relation to the new position in the sheet, and your values will end up changing. So I have our social media total column here, and then I'm going to create bins for the histogram. The bins are simply the limits for the values that are counted by Excel, and Excel counts everything that goes up to the number within the bin. So I'm going to set my lowest bin at 10 because the lowest score that someone could get on this survey is 8. Therefore, any values that are lower than 10, such as people who answered ones for all of these questions, would be counted. I'm going to select using a formula, select the value of 10 and then add 5, and then I will drag that formula down until we have bins that equal the highest score on this survey, which is 40. So the formula that Excel uses to do frequency counts is equals frequency, and once you've selected that, there are two arguments, data array and bins array. The data array is the social media total scores, so I'm going to select that, input a comma, so now I'm selecting the bins array, and then go ahead and select each of these. So it looks like no one answered 1 on all these questions. There's no frequency value, there's no count lower than 10. And what I'm going to do is I want to copy this formula into each of these cells. So the frequency count occurs for the numbers next to these cells. However, there's a slight alteration you need to do for this formula. You need to put in the money symbol, which is Shift 4, next to each of these values. Otherwise, the bins array is going to change when it's copied. So I'm going to do that really quickly. Then I'm going to select where I want to fill this formula in, which is all of these cells next to the bins array. I'm going to click up to where this formula is, and then I'm going to press Shift Command Enter if you're on a Mac using Excel, or Shift Control Enter, and this is going to fill the formula into these cells respecting the selection of this bins array, meaning it's not going to change the formula in relation to its position on the sheet. So now I have frequency counts for each of these bins. I'm going to do an equals sum command and select these frequency counts and make sure that this adds up to the total number of participants in the survey, which is 54, just to make sure I didn't make any mistakes and that there is a missing count somewhere that would be put into our histogram. Doesn't look like there is, so I'm going to rename this frequency, and then I'm going to select the values here, hit Insert, and then pick out a chart. So you can pick out any bar chart, which Excel calls column chart, because we're going to have to make some changes anyway. If you go into chart layout, or sorry, quick layout here, you'll see that there is a little cartoon picture here of a format in which there are no spaces in between these. That's what we want for a histogram, so we can show that this is a representation of a continuous distribution. And now that that's been selected, we can go ahead and make some changes. So let's name this histogram. Let's indicate that these are bins and that this is a frequency count. All right, so this is what your histogram is going to look like. We have our values here. We have the frequency counts. There are no lines behind it. That's not how we do APA format. And what you just saw me do in that bins command was to select data. So what I did is I clicked on the columns here, then I right-clicked, went to select data, and then for these horizontal category axis labels, I click this button here, which allows you to select a range on your Excel sheet, and I simply selected all of the bins. So what this does is it adds in these bins as labels along the x-axis, so it indicates where these frequency counts are taking place within the distribution. So now we can see we have one score that corresponds to 40, 12 for 35, 21 for 30, 18 for 25, and so on. All right, and that is essentially your histogram in Excel. If you right-click and copy this, you'd be able to paste it into a Word document such as you would need for your assignment, and that covers everything you need to know. Thanks.